This is like internet turning from communist internet to capitalist internet, because now you have a concept of digital ownership of media files and media properties. This is exciting because now you can give fans ownership.
Good evening, members. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have a very special guest, S.Y. Lee, our own ex-president of the Oxford Union. He is the current CEO and co-founder of Story, which is a blockchain platform focused on tokenizing IP. Story has raised $140 million with a $2.2 billion valuation, and it's backed by some of the leading investors in the world. Previously, SY also founded Reddish, a storytelling platform that acquired by Kakao for $440 million, where he later served as the global strategy officer. He also did his PPE here from Oxford, and he was the president of the Oxford Union. So please join me in welcoming SY back to the Oxford Union. SY, thank you so much for joining us. You are familiar with the atmosphere, and I think a few years ago you were sitting here interviewing people, and here you are as a guest. And it's an absolute pleasure to see someone that has been here in the union, being ex-president and has their degree from Oxford, and now being so successful. I want to start with that note as to, it's been 10 years since you graduated, and you had quite a successful run. Where did your story from Oxford Union took you, and how did you ended up where you are?
You're specifically asking for Oxford Union first?
No, from the Oxford.
From Oxford, right. So I studied PPE, and I think probably many of you are studying it, given that you're in the union. But I think, coming into Oxford, I was more interested in politics, and that's why I got involved in the union. But even after experiencing politics at the union level, I felt that it's something that I don't want to do probably long term. But and the union was a very good experience in terms of actually meeting a lot of interesting people and successful people. And I actually took this, I thought it was a exciting opportunity to meet, explore my career, and just to get to know what are some career paths I can think about. And one of the most interesting people I met there, actually, how I ended up inviting the speaker was through, my friend Ash, who was a president of the AU before me, is sitting there, and he recommended this guy called Nicholas Bergouin, and he to come to speak at the Oxford Union. His nickname at the time was homeless millionaire. He was a billionaire, but he didn't have a house and that he's living in. He's just living in a private jet and jumping around the world. And I got to meet him through the union, and there was an incident. He said has been to Japan many times, but hasn't been to Korea for 2 decades. So he said, "I want to come visit you in Korea, and for a week." So he actually tasked me with this job of planning his travel for a week in Korea a year before I finished my degree. And there was, I set him up with a meeting with the famous monk in Korea, to famous political scientists, to some chaebol owners like Samsung, Aris, to Hyundai, someone who's running Hyundai Heavy Industries. And one of the meetings in that trip that I managed to organize was basically with the group of entrepreneurs from South Korea, and there I met the founder of Nexon, which is the biggest gaming company in Korea, who unfortunately recently passed away, to the founder of Dom, which is the kind of Yahoo of Korea, and basically I was shocked being there, because all these, they're massively successful entrepreneurs, billionaire entrepreneurs, and they're all just wearing jeans and t-shirts, and they were so intensely curious at the age of 48, 50, 52. And I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like them. When I'm 50, when I'm 45, 55, I want to be as curious. I want to be thinking about new things. I want to look like a college student, just thinking about new ideas. So I was like, that really left a mark on me, because I had the chance in a week and also from just being at the Oxford Union, to compare all these kind of success people in different pathways, the people I really resonated the most were entrepreneurs. And that really, the Oxford Union experience is special because as a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, 22-year-old, you get to meet so many exciting people, and that opened doors to meeting, exciting entrepreneurs who are really successful, and that gave me a chance to think about, okay, I really want to be like them when I'm 45, 50, 55, and that really got me to think, okay, right after Oxford, I need to get into entrepreneurship.
So, which is interesting. I mean, you went straight into entrepreneurship. One would expect that as someone who has been the president of the Oxford Union means that you went through a lot of cutthroat politics over here. And one would have expected to see you in the politics of South Korea and potentially the president of South Korea, but you went in a completely different direction. Why were you always interested in entrepreneurship, never into politics?
I was always interested in politics before coming to Oxford. I was never interested in business and entrepreneurship. So, and also, I think some of you know already, but every single South Korean president always has a tragic ending. So you don't want to go into politics in South Korea. Second of all, but the thing is, I was never interested in kind of entrepreneurship or business until college, but kind of this Oxford Union experience and being able to meet successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, that's really opened my eyes into entrepreneurship. So
you are currently the CEO and co-founder of Story, but before I come to Story, you also had a journey of many ventures. I would love to know, specifically you had in journalism, and then of course then you followed on to Reddish. Did you have a vision as to what kind of entrepreneurship you wanted to go in, or you were finding the path, and as you moved on, you wanted to check whether something was good for you or not? How did you decide moving the next steps in your venture?
Yeah, so being from Oxford, being just like a student, right? You always think about, I think being a student, you always have an answer, right? Like you study really well, you get a great essay out, you get all the right answers in multiple choice questions. But the thing about actually going entrepreneurship is like there's no formula in terms of going entrepreneurship. There are some people who actually worked at a big company beforehand. There's someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs who's dropped out of college and started a company. But at the time, the person that I was, so at the time, initially I thought I didn't have a really good idea to start a business. So I was just thinking, maybe if I become a management consultant or venture capitalist, I can look at hundreds of different business ideas, and that will inform me to start a right business, was the initial thought. And I told this to a friend of mine who was running the most successful gaming company in Korea, and he was like, that's a terrible idea. I was like, why? And then he just kind of wrote me a very cryptic email to me and said, some first jobs land you onto the moon, you're going to be wildly successful, or some first job is like jumping off the cliff and it just ends your career. But I think the particular path you're thinking, the venture capital industry or management consulting, is like, it's like, going across a lake and you can never be able to, like a huge lake, a Siberian lake, you're not going to be able to swim back. And I was like, what the hell, what the hell is the guy saying? And then he was just kind of expanding and elaborating on it and said, the first job you actually pick is not just the first job, like going to college or going to a master's program. It's like something that determines 80 to 90% of your life. And you will end up seeing 20 years later, 30 years later, if you look back in your life, it's gonna look like everything you're doing is revolving around the first job you've done. So I was like, okay. And I just took that as, okay, if I go down, so I took that kind of cryptic email, he never expanded further, as basically saying, if I go into management consulting or venture capital, I would never go into entrepreneurship, because I thought just being competitive and a student who always tried to get into the best university, best school, best grade, I thought I was just going to get competitive through that venture capital management consulting route, try to make a partner, general partner, whatever, and I would never have the courage, to actually jump over to entrepreneurship, because like, let's say even you're in that job for 4 or 5 years, you're 28, 29, 30, you're thinking of marriage, you're thinking of a bunch of different things. So that's kind of what I decided from the reading that email. So I thought, okay, I need to go into entrepreneurship afterwards. And then being a politics, philosophy, economics student, okay, the thing that I was most interested in was actually just media, journalism, because that's the other side of politics. So the first business I've done right out of college was in journalism. And at the time, basically, kind of the advertising-driven model for journalism was just collapsing because of Facebook, Google, and so on and so forth. So I was doing something like a pre-Substack, where you, as a journalist or writer, as an expert, you're getting crowdfunded to, write out your articles. So that was the first business, which was very tough at the time, and decided to pivot and did a more mobile entertainment, mobile reading, mobile fiction business, and was able to manage to sell the company 4 years ago, and now doing story. Yeah.
It's very interesting you say that. You want to be in management, consultant, and went to entrepreneurship. There is the risk with entrepreneurship is, especially when you're a student finishing and you want to be your own boss, but also there's a lot of risk of certainty, whether something is successful or not, you have the money or not, at least with job, like because of the certainty that comes with it, people then go for jobs. How do you see kind of like the balance, like for people who want to be their own bosses? As you have done successfully, like you have found multiple companies and successful ones. Do they need to have an inherent talent to be an entrepreneur, or they can learn it in the process? How much courage is needed if someone has to choose between, let's say I want to do a job, I also want to be my own boss, but I'm going to do a job because I'm too scared of the world out there, the certainty?
So I really, whenever my friends say, I want to start a company, I advise against it multiple times. So I tell them, please don't start a company, please don't start a company. And the 10th time or 8th time, they actually say, I really want to do this. I say, then do it, because it's extremely tough. And I had a lot of friends just who started a company right after college, like, from Harvard, Stanford to, best university in Korea. And they're all the top, intelligent, very competent folks. And I think it's not because I'm the most intelligent. I was luckily probably one of the few actually ended up working out, and most of my friends their companies faded away. So I really don't, it's not just about the courage, it's just, I really recommend people against going into startup. And if you really, after someone tells you 10 times that it's not gonna, you still want to do it, then you should probably do it. But even then, I think, just thinking back, is there any other career path that I would have thought of besides going straight into entrepreneurship to start a company? I think probably the only other thing I would have done, I think I could have done, is probably work for a very high growth startup with a competent founder who has a very good venture capital backing, and just learn the ropes, learn how it's done for a few years, and probably go into entrepreneurship myself right after that. But other than that, I think it's best to just do it in your job, because even if you work for like a big company like Google, Amazon, Airbnb, or a massive tech company like Uber, whatever, you are doing a very specific thing at a massive organization. So it's really not transferable. So probably the most transferable skill set you can learn is working at like a Series A, Series B, or C stage company, where you have a direct access to a founder, and you can see how it's done, and you see all the fuck-ups and dramas that's happening within the company, because entrepreneurship, especially early stages, inherently very, very messy. So and you can extrapolate from that. Okay, this founder's working like 24/7. I probably don't want to have life like that, or I don't want to be in all this crazy drama. And then you decide yourself whether you want to do it or not. But I think that's probably the only other path that I would recommend to an entrepreneur. Yeah.
So you are, as I mentioned earlier, the CEO and the co-founder of Story. What is Story, for those who don't know, and what are you trying to solve with it?
Yeah, so Story, we're building a blockchain focused on intellectual property, and that's a very vague terms. But I think kind of how I like to describe it in a kind of analogy is we're trying to build a massive intellectual property Legoland, and we're making this IP Legos. What I mean by that is when you want to use an IP. Typically, what you do is you talk to lawyers. Let's say you want to use a Harry Potter IP, or you want to use the Balenciaga IP. You have to talk to lawyers or business development departments of these massive IP organizations too, and you have to do a 12-month, 14-month, or 16-month negotiation to get actually that IP for exploitation, for usage, and so on and so forth. But what we are doing is we call it programmable IP. We program the usage, licensing, royalty sharing terms around the IP into the IP so that without any middleman, like lawyers, business development, professionals, to all these red tapes around using the IP, right? We allow you to use this IP without a middleman. The reason why we think it's urgent and it's very, very timely is that actually AI is using all your IPs anyway at the moment, right? Like, you see something like a Harry Potter Balenciaga YouTube remix and mashup. You see constant remixes happening for, Drake remix to, Kendrick Lamar remix. Everyone is making like a, Trump AI remix and all these things, right? All these IPs will be being used by other people with AI. Without your without your consent anyway. So why don't we make it very easier in a legal way for others to remix and exploit and make use of your IP? And while you do that, actually people are compensating your IP from the terms that you've set on your own. And we believe that if humans have this magic wand of AI, and if humans have this amazing ingredients of intellectual property Lego pieces, now you can make the best Harry Potter fan film. You're going to have a situation in 2 or 3 years. You watch the latest Harry Potter movie or Succession episode, or you listen to a great music piece. You can make the best sequel. You can make the best next album for that artist with your imagination, with all the tools of AI. And this kind of, legal open way of using your IP. So that's kind of what we're doing at the moment, is we think all the IPs should have their enshrined programmed IP terms that other people can use. And we're taking a very developer first, business first approach. So we're trying to integrate with as many apps as possible, these primitives, so that IP or content that are getting pumped out have automatic licensing royalty sharing terms, enshrined as metadata, and that's kind of what we're focused on as a company, and we think this is very relevant with AI. And actually, the analogy I'll give you just for 2 seconds is that before GitHub, which is a software collaboration tool, and before open source, everyone was working on their own software in siloed ways, right? Now on GitHub, you see all the repository of all the software work that other people have done. Now it's a massively collective intelligence collaborative process in a global scale. Like 90+% of software out there are open source. And people around the world are iterating on your work. And software is an IP. And we think for creative IP and all different forms of IP, this kind of frictionless collaboration and improvement can happen.
So how does it work for a layperson like me?
Yeah.
There is a lot of terms here. So at what stage does Story comes in if you're a business want to protect your intellectual property, and how do you operate in protecting that? Like what stage do you come and what's the operation? How would it work?
Oh yeah. So first of all, I think just in the layman term, we're getting our IP hub out very soon, where you can set the terms around your IP, and and you can basically say, okay, for commercial usage, and if you're remixing with AI on these terms, you have to give me 30% of revenue share, and so on and so forth. And now you go into their website, you have a series of partner apps, right? Let's say there's an app called Magma, which is an image remixing tool where you can make derivatives off of someone's character, someone's IP. Or we have an app like Ablo, which is it's a merch app, but also really collaborating with a bunch of big fashion brands like Balenciaga to Vans and Crocs, where now with AI tools, you can actually create a different, your own shoes or your own t-shirt from the design that Balenciaga made, from the design that actually Crocs made, right? So the idea is there are two functions. One is you register the IP on our blockchain, and then you have series of partner apps. We call it ecosystem application partners, ecosystem applications, where you can make use of this IP and create derivative work, create remix work.
Licensable.
Yeah, license it out. Yeah.
And how did you came up with the idea? Like, because I see now the problem it's solving is quite a big problem, especially intellectual property protection, licensable, especially intellectual property. Yeah. And I can see the use, especially with the blockchain. So how did you come up with the idea, and then how did you translate it into a successful business where I think you're now listed as well?
Yeah. So I was just actually talking about this during meet and greet. Why blockchain, and how did you come up with this idea, and so on and so forth. So the last company that I've done was in mobile entertainment, mobile fiction. It was a company called Radish, and the idea was that everyone is gonna read consumable, bite-sized, episodic content, and especially for fiction, they want like rapidly serializing content because like for Netflix, you watch 12 episodes, you have to wait for a few years until the next season comes out. And for Radish, we have stuff that's coming out 5 times a day for a series. So, but the tough thing around Radish was that it was so hard on the marketing cost for Radish was actually skyrocketing, and especially with Apple's policy of not allowing application developers to accurately target potential customers for to use the app. So, and with that, I was like thinking, okay, I really want a way where my fans of the app, fans of the IP, to actually evangelize and contribute to the IP effectively, instead of me throwing a bunch of marketing dollars to advertise a story, advertise an IP. I want a scenario where the fans are actually doing the work of evangelizing. The fans are actually doing the work of actually contributing to the IP and come up with new sequel ideas and so on and so forth. So instead of me putting all the production and marketing money in, actually people are doing that job for us. And the technology, right after the exit, obviously it was a great exit, but for everyone, investors and personally, it was a great exit. But I was like, okay, that was the bottleneck for making it to a multi-billion-dollar company, and I was like, okay, at the time, this whole NFT movement from the crypto space was coming out, and a friend of mine said, this is like internet turning from communist internet to capitalist internet, because now you have a concept of digital ownership of media files and media properties. So I was like, okay, now all these ownership is frictionlessly transferable across many people. I was like, this is exciting, because now you can give fans ownership. Now you can give contributors who are actually making derivatives and coming up with fan fiction or fan films or fan ideas. And now that's even dramatically, exponentially easier to do with AI. You can create the best, Harry Potter sequel in your living room with, amazing video AI tools. So I was like, okay, this is, ChatGPT hasn't come out then, but without AI, I thought it was a very, very good idea. And then blockchain and Web3 gives that rails of ownership, a frictionless ownership transfer. So that's how I initially came up with the idea because I hated the studio top-down model of spending production and marketing money myself. I wanted the fans to actually do it for us. Yeah.
And talking about, again, within this sector, but generally, Web3 and blockchain have hit ups and downs.
Yes.
And what loop you saw in the market at the time that you still went for story? Because you're talking about a time where there were very ups and downs for Web3 and blockchain, and you still went into a sector.
It still has ups and downs.
Yes.
So like, Trump says this, it goes up by 20%, Trump say that, and it goes down by 20%. So it's still volatile. But I think in my last company experience, I was doing mobile, a small phone company in 2000. I started one in 2016. iPhone came out in 2008, 7, that kind of time frame. I started a mobile company 8 years into a mobile company. And when I looked at all my friends, I mean, obviously it was a great success, it was a good personal success, and the investors made all the money and so on and so forth for the exit. But I also, I think people are always like greedy and people wanted more. And all my friends who managed to make multi-billion-dollar company from mobile, they all started 2010, 2011, 2009, 2012. They were doing in second, third, or fourth year of that revolution. And if you look at the dot-com companies, it's also the ones that come out in second, third year. By the time you go into fifth or sixth or seventh year, it's already saturated. So, and that first, second, third, or fourth is always the most volatile time, right? Dot-com just goes up and goes down, and just there's a dot-com bubble bust, right? So I was thinking, if it's volatile, it's actually probably good, because it's when it's like a Wild West, and there's opportunities, and and because of volatility, people don't want to go in at the time. So I believed in this Web3's vision of ownership of IP and being able to transfer that very frictionlessly. And I thought the only technology that could make that possible was Web3 and blockchain. So I believed in that, and the volatility actually attracted me, because that shows that it's still a Wild West, and the intersection of IP and crypto was just starting with NFT in 2021. So although the finance, the Bitcoin, the Ethereum with DeFi applications, decentralized finance, that's been going on for like 10, 12 years, but the IP and crypto and Web3 specifically was just starting off. And I thought that was, because of my previous experience of, there are a lot of smart people in mobile, but the people who succeeded massively were all 2010, 11, like the second and third. So the timing is very important. Even if you're the smartest guy, if you start a mobile company in 10th or 11th year, you're not going to succeed. You want to be there at the very start when things are a little bit volatile, things are look new and kind of weird.
So, yeah. I mean, yes, you talk about the timing, but there's also, given your personality, there is a level of risk and courage also in the direction that you want to go and face the winds. What kind of personality do you think it takes to be like an entrepreneur, but more importantly, a successful entrepreneur? What qualities have you built over time that you didn't have and you think are very crucial to be a successful entrepreneur?
So, I mean, I think the courage and risk-taking is definitely important, but at the same time, I think probably the hardest thing is, I think there are a lot of intelligent people out there, and there are a lot of big risk takers out there. But I think the hardest thing, especially coming from places like Oxford, Harvard, or Stanford, or like really good university and so on and so forth, you're so used to, if you study hard, put the work, getting a good result within 3 months or 4 months, and you get a good grade and so on and so forth. But the thing about startup is that you don't know when it's going to succeed. It may be third year, second year, fifth year, seventh year, or eighth year. But so I think the biggest quality you need about a startup is grit and persistence. And I think Jack Ma has this quote, like, today's bad, tomorrow's even worse, but day after tomorrow is going to be a sunshine. So I think that kind of a mentality of short term, you're pessimistic, midterm, you're even more pessimistic, but long term, like, it's going to be awesome. So you have to have that mindset to kind of persist. And especially, I think, I tell my friends who are like trying to start a company, so now that I've exited a company, all my friends, who's been in banking or just big tech company, they come in and say, I want to start a company. And then it's like, let's say my friend is 32 or 31, 33. I say, it's probably going to work out if it, in a very optimistic light, as a first-time entrepreneur, like when you're 40, 41, are you okay with this? Because like 8 or 9 or 7 years, it's not gonna, it's not gonna work. So even like a massively successful company like Stripe, it's like 14, 15. I mean, obviously they're choosing not to go to take it public. It takes a long time. So I think probably it takes at least, for all the business I've seen, like 7 or 8 year to think, okay, it's comfortably going on a good trajectory, especially for the first-time entrepreneur who's going to have a lot of mistakes in hiring, have a lot of mistakes in fundraising, a lot of mistakes in like product market fit, and kind of growing the company. So I think the biggest quality you need is persistence, grit, but at the same time, it's I think that the nuance there is the persistent, gritty entrepreneurs who are really good marathon runner sometimes also are not good at like pivoting very, very quickly, like in a sprint manner. So I think this grit and probably adaptability and being able to pivot quickly.
So if you were an Oxford student starting in the entrepreneurship world today, which sector will you build in?
I would not kind of, I think you really need to figure out what you're good at and what you're gonna do, because obviously you should think about new trends, technology trends. It can be blockchain, crypto, it can be AI, it can be biotech. But ultimately, because you have to do this business for 7, 8, 9, or 10, 11 years to actually ultimately succeed, you need to go into a vertical that you feel comfortable around doing it for a long time, because that will be 200% of time being spent on your life for like 7, 8, 9, or 10, 11 years. And unless you like it a lot, you're not going to be able to persist. So I think it has to be a vertical that you feel a lot of intellectual curiosity, something that you're extremely fond of, or even if you're not fond of, you just enjoy solving problems in. So for me, I wouldn't, the media entertainment IP space as a PP major was something, even at the intersection technology, was interesting, a vertical for me. So I would think, obviously look at the technology trend, but at the same time, do a vertical that you feel like you can plow through for several years. It's going to be very important.
Perfect.